The impact of the Supreme Court's abortion decision is being felt deeply across different states. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom is cutting off Walgreens pharmacies from state business if their executives continue to refuse to sell abortion pills to customers in 20 other states with abortion restrictions. And in Texas, that state's abortion ban is having dangerous consequences for some residents. NBC's Yamiche Alcindor has more.
When Amanda and Josh Zarowski found out they were expecting a baby girl, they were overjoyed. The name they picked for her, Willow.
I mean, it was magical. The first 17 weeks were very easy, very smooth sailing.
But just before week 18, something felt wrong. Amanda's body was preparing for labor too early. The news from her doctor was devastating.
She said pretty quickly, all in one breath, you're going to lose the baby. She's not going to survive. I thought what they would do is go in and intervene immediately, but she told me that they couldn't because the baby's heart was still beating and I wasn't sick.
Laws in Texas ban doctors from performing abortions except when a medical emergency endangers a person's life or major bodily function. Those who violate the law could face up to life in prison.
Take me into what it was like to wait.
I just existed in sorrow and fear. I was really, really scared.
This just isn't something that you do with any other kind of medical issue, is you have to ask, am I sick enough to get treatment? It was infuriating.
3 days after the diagnosis, Amanda's health deteriorated. Doctors performed an abortion, but serious infections led to sepsis, and Amanda spent 3 days in the ICU.
Because of the law, I very nearly died. Nothing about this is pro-life.
Joining me now, NBC Washington correspondent Yamiche Alcindor, former Obama White House press secretary Robert Gibbs, way too early host and Politico White House bureau chief Jonathan Lemire, and former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance. Yamiche, after meeting with that couple, it's just heartbreaking. They are grieving the loss of a child, and at the same time, obviously, the health, problems for herself, the mom. You talked to the leader of Texas Right to Life, that is the name of the group. What kind of pushback did you hear?
Well, I should tell you, Andrea, their story is so heartbreaking. And to make it even more heartbreaking, Amanda, who wants more than anything to have a baby, a healthy baby, she, because of these medical complications, it's going to be harder for her to conceive because her uterus was scarred during the fact that she was forced to wait for this medically necessary abortion. So this law not only almost killed her in her mind, but it also has made it harder for her to start the family that she wants. When you talk to people on the other side of this issue, including the president of Texas Right for Life, who helped craft the Texas heartbeat law, they say that the law is clear enough that doctors can intervene with medical emergencies and when there is risk to great bodily harm, that in fact it's the doctors that are misinterpreting this, that they're not actually reading the law and communicating it well to their staff. That being said, there are so many doctors who said that they're just worried about this, that if you violate the Texas law, you could face life in prison. So all it takes is one person saying, well, I disagree with the way that this doctor handled this, for a doctor to possibly end up in prison. So Center for Reproductive Rights has filed a lawsuit that they call groundbreaking. They say this is not an issue with the doctors reading this wrong. This is an issue with the law itself. They are trying to seek really more clarification so that doctors have more ability to intervene when it comes to these medical complications, that they don't have to wait until people get sick. That lawsuit is now making its way through the courts. The other thing to note is that this lawsuit, they say, they hope could be a blueprint for other states, because Texas's near abortion ban is also seen in other states. So they're hoping that this could have national implications if they win this lawsuit. But it leaves families, and there are 7 plaintiffs in this case, it leaves families like Amanda and Josh just hoping for change while they try to deal with the complications of what happened to them. Andrea?
And I've heard of other stories like this, Yamiche. I want to bring in Joyce Vance on the legal aspects of this, because we've heard even from, I believe it was in South Carolina, where a state legislator was talking about this, and that's why they voted against a heartbeat law, where women are forced to carry babies with no fetal heartbeat at all for weeks. And there is tremendous danger to their own health, as Amanda has experienced. And now, the tragedy of the complications she may face in the future. But Joyce, doctors feel that they are facing liability. And for this group in Texas to say, well, it's the I saw Yamisha's piece last night, and he said very clearly it's the doctors who are at fault because they should do this. The law is clear. The law is not clear in that regard. The law is a warning to doctors, correct?
That's absolutely right, and it's disingenuous for legislators to pretend that it's doctors who are at fault here. What they've done is they've created an environment where it's risky for doctors to give their patients care, because if a prosecutor down the road in a red state second guesses that doctor's judgment, it's not just civil damages. Those doctors could be looking at spending the rest of their life in prison. And this is precisely the environment that these legislators hoped to craft. They very clearly say that they would like to put an end to abortion, whether that's abortion procedures or medicated abortion. Women's rights are under attack on all fronts, and pretending that it's anything other than what it is, I think, demonstrates the sort of bad faith that these legislators are acting with.
And then there's the abortion pill. Jonathan Lemire, on that side of the issue, Gavin Newsom, the blue state governors, leaning into protecting reproductive rights for medicated abortions. But where does Walgreens come out on this? They're not selling the pill even in places where it is clearly legal.
Yeah, that's the decision from the company to not sell the pill, even in states where it's legal. It's one thing if it's where states it's not. And we heard from Governor Newsom that, therefore, the state of California won't be doing business with Walgreens anymore. We're just going to see if other states follow suit. And it's just another reminder, of course, Andrea, just how much at the forefront of our current political discourse the issue of abortion is. The heartbreaking story Yamiche just brought us. We know that abortion was one of the defining issues of the 2022 midterms in the immediate aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, that polls suggest afterwards that it was one of the real animating factors for so many voters, and one of the main reasons why Democrats did so well this past November, better than expected. And I think there's no reason to believe that will be anything other than the case in 2024 as well. Even though we'll have more distance from that decision, we see certain states really trying to further restrict access to the abortions. Florida just now doing so, that there will be more of a belief that Republican-led state legislatures and state houses are going to try to continue to take this away from voters, from women in their states. And I think that you're going to hear from both sides of the aisle, Democrats vowing to protect it, while some Republicans, fueled by pro-life groups, trying to restrict it even further, saying this is a moment to go even further, proposing even further bans.
And the White House then comes into play as to what they can do, but they can only do things that involve the federal government, not the state issues. Robert Gibbs. That's right. This is a major issue in 2024. There's no question about it. But look at the Republican candidates in the primaries. Mike Pence is calling for an abortion pill ban, federally mandated.
Yeah, Andrea, I mean, I think everyone who might have thought that when this Supreme Court decision leaked that the issue had been settled, the months and really the hours after that certainly gave rise to the idea of just how potent this issue is going to be, not just in 2022, but in 2024. And even if you talk to Republican political strategists, a near ban on or total ban on abortion polls at about 10% nationally. So it gives you a sense of really the exercise that goes on now to stake out the right ground here, to stake out ground that's politically safe, to stake out ground that's medically safe, and to provide some level of clarity to all the facets and complications that the Supreme Court really unfurled in their decision. But I anticipate that this will be a political issue in 2024 and maybe well beyond.
And Jonathan, I want to turn to pivot to this reaction we're seeing now on Capitol Hill from Republican senators to the newly released January 6th video, selectively edited, aired by Fox News host Tucker Carlson, provided exclusively to him by the House Speaker McCarthy. Carlson attempted to downplay the violence by showing only people calmly walking through the Capitol, not the hours of footage showing rioters violently engaging with police.
Yeah, well, Tucker Carlson.
I think it's bull. When you see police barricades breached, when you see police officers assaulted, all of that, or you had to be in close proximity to it. If you were just a tourist, you should have probably lined up at the visitor center and came in on an orderly basis. So I just don't think it's helpful.
Was it an insurrection in your view?
Well, I don't know how you want to describe it. All I know is that there were a lot of people in the Capitol at the time who I think were scared for their lives. So you can, however you want to describe it, but it was an attack on the Capitol.
When you come into the chambers, when you start opening members' desks, when you stand up in their balcony, to somehow put that in the same category as a permitted peaceful protest is just a lie.
So, Jonathan Lemire, those are Republican senators. This is not Benny Thompson complaining about, turning over the footage without permission of the police. This is Republican senators saying it's a lie.
Yeah, and I think, as I was starting to say there, that from the moment of January 6th, that evening, 2021, Tucker Carlson and some of his colleagues have tried to downplay what happened that day, and he's been cheered on by some Republicans in Congress. I think it's heartening that those Republican senators are not going along with that, but some in the House have already seized upon the footage yesterday, and again suggesting that this is the mainstream media and Democrats overblowing what would they deem as a peaceful protest. Let's be clear, that's not what this was. It was a violent mob. It was a riot. People died that day and in the days after. Many others were hurt. No matter what sort of efforts to whitewash or downplay it, that's not going to change the facts. But it goes to show just where the most influential voice on the most influential conservative news channel is taking his viewers. And it's where the Republican Party goes. And I do think it's striking, Andrea, that here, as the Republican primary field takes shape, how very few candidates are talking about January 6th, an issue of which they likely could you really use as a wedge issue, as a cudgel to bash Donald Trump and blame him for what happened that day. None of them are doing that. Why? Because they know so many Republican voters agree with that sentiment. The January 6th was just a peaceful protest. The January 6th wasn't that big a deal. Maybe it just got out of hand, and so many Republicans in Congress right now still do not believe that Joe Biden was legitimately elected president. It's the legacy of the big lie, and it's going to be with us through 2024 and beyond.
And in fact, we know from the testimony in the depositions for the Dominion lawsuit against Fox that those primetime anchors knew differently at the time in real time about the election results and a lot of other things, and just chose to say what they were saying. To be continued. Yamiche Alcindor, such great reporting. Thank you, Robert Gibbs, Jonathan Lemire, Joyce Vance. Thanks to all.